How's it going, everyone? Long time no see. I have finally crawled out of the cave. As you can see, it's been quite some time. So, what we're doing today is we are starting the tunnel series. We are going to walk through one at a time, one by one. We're going to address the tunnels, the meanings behind them, how to understand them, how to get through them, etc., etc. This is less of an instructional and more of a philosophical, but yeah, let's get started regardless. The source material that we're going to be working through for this is my own notes that I have gathered along the way. We're going to be working through Kenneth Grant's Nightside of Eden. We are going to be using the Shadow Tarot by Falorio and some of the Tunnels of Set by Asenath Mason. That is the source material for this series. There will be some other things that I've picked from here and there, but probably not enough to get too deep into. So, that being said, let's get started. This is going to be a lot of reading. This is going to be a lot of thinking. But this is necessary to get into the mindset and the perspective to actually approach these spaces. I could tell you how to get into a tunnel, but you might not be able to find it. Or I could tell you how to get there, but you might not be able to make the changes necessary to pass through that path. So we're going to approach this from a philosophical perspective, and we are going to be consulting other sources other than myself. So another thing that I would suggest is having some form of visual focus. So I personally printed out copies of the Shadow Tarot and placed them on my mirror, my black mirror, when I was pathworking, scrying, working through these areas, these locations. Just 4 pieces of sticky tack on a black mirror. Be surprised what that can do for you. If you don't want to do that, if you don't have the book, or if you don't want to download things or print things without paying for them, you can do something yourself, or have someone help you. For instance, my partner made me several cards. So one of the colors that relates to the path of Aleph is pale yellow and mauve. So I have these double-sided cards here, one for the light side, one for the night side. Same with Mem, Sheen, etc., 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 etc. Got all kinds of them here. Just make these yourself if you feel so inclined, or you can have somebody else make them for you. Anyway, we're going to get into it now. We are starting with the first path, or the 11th path, technically, which is Amprodias. That is how I pronounce it. You can say Amprodias, you can say Amprodias, you can say whatever you want. It is the reverse of the Fool card. It is the polarized aspect of Aleph. It is the polarized aspect of the path that connects Keter to Hokmah, or it is the path that connects Tamael to Gogiel. Okay, we are going to start in the Nightside of Eden with Kenneth Grant. And we're basically going to read one section out of each one of these works so that you yourself can get an idea of a general purview, and then you can extract and extrude your own ideas and concepts from that. So, reading from the Nightside of Eden by Kenneth Grant, this says, Amprodias. The 11th path, or Kala, is attributed to the element of air, and its negative aspect is the demon or shadow known as Amprodias, whose sigil is here given, and whose number is 401. So, I will, I suppose, go ahead and show the the Shadow Tarot, because it actually has the sigil on there. So here is the sigil, and a sort of muted version of the Shadow Tarot card. If you want to screenshot that so that you can use it on your own, feel free. Amprodias' number is 401. The shadow may be evoked by vibrating the name Amprodias in the key of E. The sigil should be painted in a luminous pale yellow on a square ground of emerald flecked with gold. 401 is the number of Azoth, which signifies the sum and essence of all, conceived as one. In its negative phase, this essence is conceived as none, and is the void from which manifestation proceeds. The nature of this void is also 401, as Ath, Aleph, Tav, the Hebrew word meaning out of. It's also related to Eth, which can mean truth. Its root is the Egyptian Ut, whence uterus, the gate of outrance. It is of the womb of the Ain, via Kether, or Keter, that manifestation issues. Okay. The sigil of Amprodias exhibits a gaping mouth, typical of the uterus, which utters the word. You see the gaping mouth there. This word is the hidden light, the symbol of which is the whirling cross, or swastika. It is identical with the letter A, or Aleph, the letter attributed to the 11th path. In the magical grimoire 231, CCXXXI, or Liber 231, the following verse pertains to this kala. A, the heart of Iao, dwelleth in ecstasy in the secret place of the thunders. Between Asar and Asi he abideth in joy. The thunderbolt, or Dorje, also known as a Perba or Vajra, is the lightning-born weapon of the hidden light that streaks downward from the void, reifying as it does, so earth or matter. The number 401 is also that of the word ARR, which means cursing. It is the primal curse of the fire of the spirit, imprisoned in bodily form, described in the holy books as the wrong of the beginning. There's a citation here to see Liber 7. The beginning being considered as Kether or Keter, through which flash the lightnings of the Ain, or eye of the void. Remember, ayin in Hebrew means eye, and Ain also means nothing. The animals ascribed to this kala are the eagle and the man. Man represents the highest embodied form of the Godhead. The eagle is that cherub of air that pervades the highest aethers in the form of intelligence, i.e., consciousness directed by extraterrestrial or divine will. But the inmost significance of this path is summed up in the magical power of the 11th kala, which is that of divination. This depends upon the divine or supramundane aspect of spirit that rays into the womb and fecundates the virgin earth with light, intelligence, from beyond the ultimate pylon, Keter. Divinatory power is the intuitive aspect of intelligence, and as such, its course is as unpredictable as the forked lightning which cleaves the womb of space and manifests as the thunderbolts, the A between the I and the O. The mystery of the thunderbolt is explained in 231, Liber 231. Therein, the swastika of the 11th path is compared with the fulguration of path 28, which contains the mystery of the transformation of the Holy Virgin. She appears as fluidic fire, making her beauty into a thunderbolt, i.e. a swastika, And remember, this is the ancient symbol swastika. This has nothing to do with Nazism or anything like that. This symbolizes the force that restores the world ruined by evil, i.e., by the primal curse or wrong of the beginning. On the magical plane, the divinatory power manifests in the irrational. Thus, the greatest masters of magic traffic constantly with the energies of the 11th Kala. The irrational element appears so strongly in magicians using this Kala that their work has often not been taken seriously or has been altogether overlooked. A recent example is H.P. Blavatsky, whose antics cast such doubt upon the authenticity of her work that few in her time were able to estimate her at her true worth. Similarly, Crowley's clowning placed him in an even more dubious category. Few indeed understand that the 11th path is that of the fool, who dances on the brink of the abyss, as depicted in the tarot trumps ascribed to this path. Salvador Dali, whose practical jokes are notorious, has also at times brought discredit upon his artistry, although many people are impressed by the wealth which his artistry has amassed. The occultist Gurdjieff also falls into this category. His book, Letters to Beelzebub, has been described as a complicated practical joke, thus again deliberately obscuring the vital import of a teaching that is meant only for the few. Did not Christ also speak in parables so that he would not be understood? The key note of the musical scale ascribed to Amprodias, E, is as He, the letter of the womb of the virgin impregnated by the fool. In accordance therewith, the river of the underworld, ascribed to the 11th Kala, is Acheron, which receives spirits as the womb receives the creative lightning. The archdevil of this path is Satan himself, lord of the powers of the air, Aleph, through which the thunderbolt streaks. 11 is the number ascribed to the power zone Da'at, within the abyss. The color attributed to Da'at is lavender, or pure violet, which typifies the color beyond space that vibrates in unison with the Kala activated by the evocation of Amprodias. It is the color of the madman, he that is without the range of normal intelligence. The negation of reason that typifies his state of consciousness is so consonant with the positive side of this path, which is also ascribed to that. Excuse me, got to turn the page. Which is also ascribed to that part of the soul known as the ruach, or reason. More correctly, the ruach is the breath of the spirit, the whirling seed that impregnates the virgin of space and brings to birth innumerable words. The bodily organ corresponding to this symbolism is the nose, the organ of breath, and the vehicle of the olfactory sense. Excuse me. This attribution helps to explain the Aulid phenomena connected with satanic operations. The stench of the incense employed in medieval rites was gross and outer veil of an interior spiritual fact. The stench of the incense employed in medieval rites was the gross and outer veil of an interior spiritual fact. Hence, one of the magical weapons associated with this Kala is the fan, which disperses the fetid vapors that envelop the magician as he evokes the demon of this Kala. But the prime instrument is the dagger of air. That is to say, the weapon that ruptures the hymen of the virgin ether, represented by the black egg of spirit, or Kosh, and exhibits the awful deity beyond the rim of the universe, he who sits at the center of all, the mad god, celebrated by Lovecraft under the name of Nyarlathotep, the god surrounded by idiot flute players. The flute is the pipe of Pan, and he who lifts this veil and peers beyond is bereft of reason and of sense. In other words, he sees the truth of things and its naked brilliance. And he realizes that again is but a veil of the primal sacrament, attainable only by the supreme formula of annihilation. For this is the ultimate path, which leads, via Keter, to the great insane, Ain. 11 being the general number of magic, or energy tending to change. The 11th path represents particularly the path of reversal and the point of turning back from the hither to the other side of the tree. The disease typical of the 11th path is the flux, which in magical terms is expressed as unbalanced or untimely discharges of lunar energy. It is therefore the kala of the black moon blood. It warns of a leakage of vital fluid, which, on overflowing, forms a residue of unbalanced magical energy. This breeds phantoms that appear in the form of sylphs, elementals associated with air or ether. Like the fairies and sprites of children's tales, they are, more often than not, depicted as diaphanous and beguiling creatures. But in the aspect in which they manifest on the negative side of the tree, they haunt the awful chasms of inner space, where they appear in semblances of utmost horror, which obsess the magician and sometimes drive him literally out of his mind. They then invade the vacated space and, like leeches, drain the blood of the mind into their own organisms. This is the origin of the myths concerning magicians imprisoned in outer space, their minds secreted in transparent cells. That float through the gulfs of the void like immense bubbles. Increasing in size and luminosity as the invading sylphs draw more and more vital energy from the fluxes that have attacked the unwary intruder on this path. These creatures were dimly sensed by Lovecraft, and this cites 12 Lovecraft called these bubbles shoggoths. A similar word exists in the Chaldean language, Shagatai. Bet Shagatai was the house of fornication, and this suggests the sexual undertones contained in the name of the viscous jelly, or slime, that is the primal vehicle of the creative seed. A similar description is applied in the semi-entity Yog-Sothoth. The passage is quoted in the Magical Revival, page 116, where attention is drawn to the close similarity between the phenomenon described and the sphere of iridescent globes incorporated by Crowley in the design of his personal magical pentacle, where they appear behind the inverted pentagram of Set. The highest initiations alone can confer immunity from these vampires that sail on scintillant wings. Fairy lore has disguised these creatures with charming veils that conceal the horror of their pursuits and contacts with the denizens of alien systems of consciousness and the nethermost regions of the cosmos. Arthur Machen, the Welsh writer who knew more of these matters than he cared to admit, notes this penchant of the fairyologist for whitewashing these airy beings and depicting them as fair entities. So, the title of the tarot trump ascribed with the 11th kala is the Spirit of Ether. On the hither side of the tree, this spirit is more resplendently beautiful and luminous than words can describe, but its reverse or reflex is described above. So also are the bubbles blown by the fool of the tarot in his mad career on the edge of the pit. The number of Amprodias concentrates into 5, the most mysterious and mystical of numbers in the cosmos, and beyond it. Lovecraft hints at the influences it denotes when he alludes to the quintile mathematical tradition of the Old Ones. There's a citation here, at the Mountains of Madness. And their cyclopean structures and dwellings based upon the shape of the 5-pointed star. In Al, I, 60, Nuit, Liber Al. Nuit describes her symbol as the 5-pointed star, with a circle in the middle, and the circle is red. My color is black to the blind. All these ideas pertain to the 11th path. The red circle is the black moon, or moon of blood. The 5-point or star rays are the vaginal vibrations of the female during the 5-day flood. The 5-pointed star is also the glyph of the transcosmic Old Ones, and the egg of the spirit. And the egg of spirit is black to the blind, or those whose spiritual eyes are not open and who are therefore like the Virgin, who later assumes the form of fluid fire as the thunderbolt. The African concept, afefe, has been attributed to the 11th kala. Afefe is the wind, and it is precisely here, in the most primal symbolism known, that we discover the identity of the serpent as a symbol of creative potency, the ruach, or spirit. Afefe became the apep, or apap, snake of the draconian mysteries in Egypt. The Afefe Apophis is also the origin of the Fafnir worm of Norse myth, and, as Massey has shown, a modern derivative of our word puff, to blow out, in the sense of becoming big, swollen, tumescent, or pregnant. The African Afefe therefore reveals the bellying or billowing force of the wind, that is the gust or ghost which became, in a later recent recension of the mysteries, the Holy Ghost that impregnates the Virgin in the form of the dove, the typical bird of the air. This is further corroborated by the fact that the genius of the wind, of which Afefe is the messenger, dwells in the grand temple of Legba, the African phallic deity, that in the later cults was equated with evil owing to his connection with the mysteries of sex. The letter A in the formula IAO is identical with Apophis, and is the field of operation in which the magical energies of the I and the O, the phallus and the keteis, polarize and perform their creative function. That concludes the chapter of Amprodias from the Nightside of Eden by Kenneth Grant. Next we will read, those sections will be the largest by far. The others will just be a few paragraphs. So moving into the Shadow Tarot by Linda Falorio. This is her section on Amprodias. Here's a little bit more clear image of the card here. Okay. Amprodias. The irrational taken to the extreme results in perfect freedom, the ability to perceive pure essence and to extend consciousness into outer realities. The image of Amprodias is the void from which all manifestation proceeds, disguised as Nyarlathotep, mad god of the Necronomicon and Lovecraft mythos. It is the dark, starred, crawling chaos at the heart of matter, lurking just beyond the brink of rational consciousness, messenger and servant of the great old ones. Here is the black hole at the center of the universe, where lies the great inane, surrounded by idiot flute players piping on the quixotic music of the spheres. As reality, and that primal slime, nuclear chaos of Yog-Sothoth churning beyond human space-time, froths into existence. The quintile mathematical traditions of the great old ones have transformed the swastika into an inverted five-armed Dorje thunderbolt, streaking through the void, rupturing seamless reality with high-voltage electric blasts. Mole-like hands of the faceless one, wordless utterer, voice of silence, dig deep, penetrating caverns of the mind with worm-like tendrils, dragging consciousness into Vishuddha chakra to be torn apart by mindless whirrings. So, Vishuddha here. This Da'athian violet gateway to the inner void is infested with nether aspects of erstwhile beguiling fairies, vampires. They haunt these chasms of inner space, imprisoning the minds of foolhardy magicians in transparent cells, floating through the void like immense soap bubbles blown by the fool of the Dayside Tarot. The trance of this tunnel is the universal joke. There is no meaning in existence. The universe is pure caprice, or caprice. An immense practical joke played on hapless victims. Reminds me of Capri's son. Here the irrational taken to the limits of absurdity results in perfect freedom, with subsequent loosening the girders of the soul. The normal chains of cause-effect that bind us to mundane reality and bind us into the conscious life of the human species, no longer obtain. Thus we float above reality, freed of prejudice, unclouded by illusion, and able to objectively perceive essence. Amprodias meditation. The power of the tunnel of Amprodias is to accelerate our vibratory vitality, The power of the tunnel of Amprodias is to accelerate our vibratory vitality, enabling us to glimpse alien consciousness, resident and parallel dimensions operating at such velocities that we are normally unaware of their existence. Through such accelerated vibratory consciousness, we achieve greatly heightened powers of perception, giving insight into outer mathematics and alternative non-Euclidean geometries and realities. In the tunnel of Amprodias, we are able to mind meld with transhuman entities and to speak in tongues. Which is interesting too, because Dantofaxith sort of relates to that as well. So there's sort of a mirroring there. Here is true laughter, the safeguard of sanity. Here is healthy release of tension through the bioenergetic circuit of excitation, tension, release, relaxation, joy. That's a hyphenated phrase. Interesting. That reminds me a lot of Prometheus Rising and the way that the circuits are described by Timothy Leary. They're extremely hyphenated concepts like this. So, here we are. I lost my spot. Here is true laughter, the safeguard of sanity. Here is healthy release of tension through the bioenergetic circuit of excitation, tension, release, relaxation, joy. It's like a cycle. Here is freedom of thought, energy, courage, and the independence to pursue one's will. Need to work with the energies of Amprodias. Need to work with the energies of Amprodias may be signaled by our experience of sorrow at the cruelty of nature, by feeling of despair at its inherent meaninglessness, by lacking perspective and humor when faced with grim reality. On the other end of the scale, we may encounter in ourselves or others a feeling of contempt for the unenlightened masses, a detachment from ordinary human sorrows, an aloofness from mundane concerns, thus feeling bored, stuck, restless, and rootless. Yet fearing change, we find apprehension of the future which results in blind clinging to the security of routine. Too much unbalanced working here may ultimately result in fragmentation of the ego, and brain-fevered deliriums, perhaps addictions to hyped-up, hypertrophied manic states, which results in high blood pressure, burnout, and exhaustion, especially of the type associated with the effects of repeated extraterrestrial contacts upon the human nervous system. Okay. Now, we are going to cover, for those of you who that is not enough, we're going to cover the pathworking that is suggested. So, I'm going to get to the meat and bones of this. Visualize that for a moment everything fades away and the whole world disappears. Then the darkness around you crystallizes into a scenery. You are inside a black space with a huge web extending in all directions. It is not a spider web, though. It is made of flesh and looks like a membrane composed of living tissues. It also seems alive and responds as you walk on it. With each step, you can hear voices coming to you from all around, a mixture of whispering, singing, wailing, and talking. At first, they seem like a cacophony, with no distinguishable sounds. But then you start to understand what they are saying. They are guiding you into the depths of the realm. As you go further, that landscape transforms into a garden with big red flowers dripping aromatic nectar. The flowers look like they are made of living flesh, and the nectar resembles blood. It is thick and red. The guardian of the tunnel is waiting for you there as well. It is a naked woman with long flowing hair and glowing eyes. She has a human form, but as you look to her, you can tell that the body is artificial and it is merely an extension of the landscape, while in fact you are dealing here with a force that is primordial, atavistic, and shapeless. In her hands, the guardian holds a chalice, into which she gathers the nectar dripping from the flowers. As you drink it, your perception shifts, and you see the whole scenery melting, as if it was only an illusion. You realize that all you see is illusory. There is no universal truth, and nothing is objective. You see your past, with all situations and experiences that have brought you here, and you realize that there is no pattern behind it. All of it is a random sequence of events. There is no destiny. and there is no future to look ahead to. It is illusory as well. All that exists here and now, and the entire world, is nothing but a projection of your mind. Your hopes, fears, ambitions, fantasies, phobias, etc. Nothing is real, and everything is real at the same time, as long as you believe it to be real. With this thought, everything disappears and you are alone in the black space again. Allow for any visions and messages that may come to you. Allow for any visions and messages that may come to you now. And when your journey is over, return to your normal consciousness. Open your eyes and finish the working for the day. So, we're already at half an hour here. Originally, I had planned on reading the visions from the paths that I received, but that might be something separate since we're already at a half an hour here. Let's see, is there anything else that I was wanting to cover? Essentially, the paths are like the children the tunnels are like the children of the spheres. This is one way to think about them. The energy of Amprodias, which connects Tamael to Gogiel, is made of the energy of those spheres. The last point that I suppose I would make, in my experience, these tunnels are the subjective unconscious. It is how you experience your own shadow, as opposed to the world shadow, which might be more associated with the Qliphoth. Anyway, this is it for now. I plan on doing all 22 tunnels in this manner. We may do a part 2 of this series, which actually gets into the technicality, logistics, the workings, and everything. But for now, we're just going to cover the philosophical aspect of it, because I think that's what most people need. Anyway, that's all. Enjoy the rest of your week, and feel free to leave any comments or questions below. Thanks again. Take care.